Hi everyone, this is Galaletsang reporting for Recoloblog. I'm with a young and talented actress, Didintle Khunou, who's the lead actress in the current musical, The Color Purple. Hi Didi, how are you doing?
I'm great, I'm so glad you said my surname right!
It only took one take. So Didi, the last time I saw you, you were starring in our commercial about gender abuse. And now you're doing a musical about the color for The Color Purple.
Yeah.
So how does it go transitioning from one scene or from one role to another, and how do you prepare for each role?
I mean, I guess I was very lucky to have worked on a project that was based on the themes that The Color Purple explores, because, well, then people could associate my work with dealing with, gender-biased themes and gender violence.
Yeah.
So it was cool, and it kind of felt like the universe was kind of like, yeah, this is what you should talk about in your craft, in your work.
Yeah, yeah.
Because at that point, when we did the Brothers for Life advert, like I never knew that I was going to do Color Purple.
Really?
No.
Okay, and then so obviously.
Or did I? But it was a while ago.
It was a while ago.
I don't think I was aware of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you probably just gone for auditions when we were shooting the Brothers for Life ad. So also tell me, how did actually doing the Brothers for Life thing, doing that commercial about gender-based violence, did that help you kind of prepare for your role? Like kind of having a bit more information about, that kind of subject matter?
I mean, I've always been, so I'm very much interested in finding out what my position is as a black woman in society.
Yeah.
So I guess doing the advert did sort of encourage me and inspire me to continue the research and the work of just exploring gender violence. But what really inspired me into doing the work of The Color Purple was, well, firstly, I didn't really have a choice.
Okay.
I don't think a lot of actresses would be like, oh, here, we'd like you for The Color Purple, do you want it or not? And they'd be like, I don't know if I want. Like it's a huge brand.
Yeah.
And it's an internationally acclaimed production.
Yeah.
And they had just did the revival on Broadway in New York. So when people heard that it was coming to Africa, they were like, everyone sort of wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah.
They had auditions in Pretoria. And at that time, I was shooting for a Sotho drama on SABC2 called Mamello.
Okay. And
I was hoping to go to the auditions in Pretoria, but I couldn't go because of the clashes in schedules.
Yeah.
But then I got another brief that said, they're still looking for the main characters. And my best friend who sent me the brief, before my agent sent me the brief, was like, this is like an opportunity for you to go. This is your chance. You have to go give it a bash.
Jeez,
so and at that point, so it was going to be at the State Theatre, and at that point they decided to move it to the Joburg Theatre. And so I went.
Oh, that's awesome. So it's actually interesting that you mentioned that, this is an international musical. I mean, it's obviously played in the UK and it's played in the US.
Yeah.
Have you seen the musicals that played there?
I haven't seen them live.
Or was your character informed?
Like I've seen the clips on YouTube.
Have you seen the footage? Yeah.
Yes, the footage on YouTube and the Broadway revival work, as well as the original Broadway shows when Fantasia, the singer Fantasia was playing Celie.
Yeah.
And then I saw Cynthia Erivo embody Celie. So I got to see some clips and some scenes, which was also quite inspiring. But I think what really inspired me was watching Whoopi Goldberg. Yeah. Because she's kind of like the first Celie. And but I took care not to bite anyone's performance. Like as an actor, you definitely want to approach your work quite authentic to who you are and what you can bring to the table. But definitely the film was sort of like the biggest I don't know, one of the materials that inspired me the most.
Yeah.
And the novel, of course.
The novel is an important
the novel
part
was
of it.
like my Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, because I was going to ask if you'd watched, the theater productions that took place overseas,
Yeah.
the movie, and if you'd obviously read the book. And I think you've answered all those. Did you know that was Whoopi Goldberg's debut in the movie?
Yes.
When she played Celie.
Yes.
And it was Oprah's debut
As well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, I realized that Whoopi had won an award for her portrayal as Celie.
Yeah.
So I realized, okay,
no pressure.
It's a coveted role.
Yeah.
A lot of people who would die for the opportunity to portray these characters.
Yeah.
Not only because the story is just so important for us to dissect even today in the 21st century, but also because of the established artists and actors who who introduced these roles to us.
Yeah. Guys like Danny Glover.
Yeah.
Who, funny enough, isn't Donald Glover's actual father. There's no relation. So one of the cool things that I think the movie covered, I mean, we mentioned gender abuse, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't just cover gender abuse, right? It covers a whole
Sure.
bunch of other themes.
A lot of themes. Femininity and womanhood. It covers sexual orientation and sexual identity. It covers a lot. Race, religious views, and how we perceive God to be. And essentially the power of love and the power of being able to find your inner voice, especially if your voice has been silenced throughout your childhood, throughout your adolescence. It's about being able to just learn to think about your authentic voice, understand where that comes from, and how to express yourself.
Yeah. And
It's very powerful.
Yeah. And I mean, I think, like you said, like most of those themes were centered around the issues or some of the problems, the struggles that especially African American women are facing in the 20th century. How do you think, when you take those issues compared to now in the 21st century, like some of those things still affect
all
women?
of those things still affect us today.
Yeah.
They still affect both black men and women.
Yeah.
Well, men and women in general.
Yeah.
I'll think of like one of the less obvious themes, is how patriarchy. So The Color Purple actually shows us how patriarchy itself hurts men too.
Yeah.
Because men have to perform that.
Yeah.
And the character Harpo isn't your typical aggressive and patriarchal kind of guy, right? That's not how he expresses his love in a romantic relationship.
Yeah.
And his father is constantly telling him to man up and beat his woman up. And the reason why the character Sophia, played by Oprah, tramples all over him is because he's not man enough, and he needs to stand his ground and beat her so that he can silence her.
Wow.
So, but then it's just not in him.
Yeah.
So it shows how men also have the struggle of having to navigate, this world with these patriarchal views that they may not necessarily identify with or resonate with.
Yeah.
And it also touches on, like I said, sexual identity. So Celie, because Celie has been sexually abused by her father and the man that her father sells her to, her husband.
Yeah.
She eventually realizes that she actually finds a refuge and comfort in women.
Yeah.
And she doesn't look at men because in the book it says that, she says that they scare her. She looks at women and she's attracted to women.
Yeah.
Well, the person that happens to make her feel loved and make her feel validated as a person and like she matters happens to be a woman.
Yeah.
So The Color Purple has always been controversial. So Alice Walker was really just trying to open people's minds to thinking of love outside of gender and marriage, but associating love with self-sacrifice and respect, and unconditional care and unconditional love. That love doesn't really have a face or agenda. That's very powerful. It's huge.
And Alice Walker is the author, by the way, right? She's the one who wrote the original.
She wrote the novel, and it went on to win awards, and so Steven Spielberg was like, "This is."
I was shocked when I like remembered that Steven Spielberg
was the one who directed it.
But
if you watch it, you can kind of see like the different modes, and I don't know, like the different techniques that he uses that are so kind of like unique to him and his expression through his work as a filmmaker, and like you can totally tell that it's his work. But I mean, that's how much of a big story it was, that he picked up on it, and he decided that this was a story that he wanted to tell. Cool.
And I mean, I think the important thing, right, is they're obviously people who have probably read the book and who have probably seen the movie. And like you mentioned earlier, when you play the role of Celie, you want to bring your own interpretation to it, right? So based on the fact that people have seen the movie or read the book, well, how did you guys kind of put your own South African brush on the production?
Okay. Well, I'm going to just mention some of the challenges that I had to go through in embodying this character. Like people because they have seen Whoopi Goldberg's face as Celie, so that exists in the world. It was also kind of difficult for them to kind of like see this light in complexion young girl play Celie. Everyone just automatically assumes that she's supposed to be dark, and because
that's the character they know.
Colorism is also, but then the character is fictional. And because I'm a black woman, obviously there are many things that I can relate to, and that would make it appropriate for me to play this character. So that was one of the first things that people sort of were questioning and were like,
Really?
Yeah, like a lot of people were like, you're pretty and you're yellow. And I was just like, that doesn't really... To a lot of people, like I would be seen as ugly and like unattractive and stay away. So it's beauty also is kind of relative. But the whole point, I think, is that they needed to find actresses who could live or bring Alice Walker's intentions out and really focus on the story as opposed to like specifically looking exactly like Whoopi Goldberg or Oprah or whatever. And I guess they found that in us, and that's humbling and nice.